the next head coach of the Tar Heels, Coach Roy Williams.
No doubt in Detroit, North Carolina, the national champions.
And the national title is won on a final shot.
Redemption is found in the desert. The Tar Heels have won their 6th national title.
You've made me a better man, and that's the most important thing. I'm 10 times better man than when I was I got here, so thank you.
Our great pleasure to be joined by the Hall of Famer, Roy Williams, the head basketball coach of the men's side for the Tar Heels. A conversation about being a champion. Roy, but if I could pause for a second and begin with the other side of that coin, what it's like to work all season, take a special group of young men, and lose that game. Mm-hmm. A memory that first comes to mind when you think of not prevailing in that final game of the season.
Well, it's pretty easy because I've had 3 of them. And the good thing, there's 3 guys that should be thankful for me being so nice. Because Mike Krzyzewski's first national championship was against my Kansas team. Jimmy Boeheim's first national championship was against my Kansas team. Jay Wright's first national championship was against my North Carolina team. So and those are 3 great guys. But it's funny, I was thinking, I don't want to be that nice. Let them get that against somebody else. But the most inadequate feeling you have as a coach, by far, or I do, and I think it would be for anybody, is what do you say to your team when you've just lost the national championship game? We lost by 7 to Duke in '91. We lost to Syracuse in 2003, my last game at Kansas. And then, of course, in Villanova, Marcus Page makes the most unbelievable shot I've ever seen to tie it. And Chris Jenkins makes a 3 at the buzzer to beat us.
Let's start with the last one,
okay.
Page. That absolutely remarkable shot. Mm-hmm. In particular, Roy, what did you say to him when that game was over?
Well, the first thing I'll tell you, I told Michael Jordan, if we had won that game in overtime, your shot to beat Georgetown would have been the 2nd most famous shot in North Carolina history. But Marcus Page was such a tough kid, such a competitive kid, that he willed that ball. They used to say that about Arnold Palmer, willing the ball into the hole. That's what Marcus did. And to have that shot go in, and as soon as it left Chris's hands, I knew it was going in. Just as soon as he shot us, that's going in. But I'm sitting outside the locker room, and I'm pretty torn up. And all of a sudden, somebody comes and wraps their arms around me. And it's Michael Jordan. And he said, I just want to come see if you're okay. And I said, Michael, what do I say to my kids? And I said, how about just going in there yourself and tell them you're proud of them and give me another minute or 2. So Michael went in and talked to my team. And Marcus Page told me later that he's leaned forward and his head's in a towel. And he hears someone talking. And all of a sudden it dawns on him, wait a minute, that's not Coach. And he pulled the towel down and looked up, and it was Michael Jordan talking to him. And so Michael just said, you know, I'm proud of you, and you got to live with this kind of stuff. It'll make you hungry, those kind of things. And then Michael left, and so I did. I got to get up and say something. And I did the same thing. I just told him how proud I was. And to Marcus and Bryce and Joel, the 3 seniors, that you're not going to get another chance because you're a senior. But I challenged the other guys to use that as fuel to motivate them to work hard in the summer, that if we had a chance to get back, that they had to remember Marcus and remember Joel and remember Bryce. And, you know, it's storybook ending. We did get back the next year and we won the thing.
We see these players on TV. They become almost brands unto themselves, and we forget, as we're watching at a distance, that they're 17 and 18 and 19 years old. The scrutiny that they're placed under and the attention they receive. With you as an example, Roy, criticism and scrutiny. If you're being honest, what's the one piece of criticism you've held on to or has motivated you most?
Well, a couple of writers early on sort of made fun that I would cry at the end of the NCAA tournament. And so one year I said, you know, if you're going to say something like that, be tough enough to say it to my freaking face. And, you know, I never had anybody come up and say that to me. So I held on to that quite a while. But
why that?
It just pissed me off, and I probably shouldn't say those things. My wife hates it when I use that terminology. But I care, and I am emotional, and that's who I am. And I hurt, and I was sad because I wasn't going to coach those guys anymore.
How does life most change after you win it?
People yell at you more as you go through the airports. That's what it is. That's the thing I really did notice in '05 is, Roy, yeah, Roy. And I'm thinking, wow, just winning a national championship. But that was the biggest thing as far as I was concerned. '09 and '17 and '05, all three of them, though, the changes, the bond that you will have with those teams for the rest of their lives.
Goals. Mm-hmm. What goals do you explicitly write and share with the team for a season, Roy?
Every year for my team to have a chance that at the end of the year there's 10 or 12 or 14 or 15 that have a chance to win a national championship. And that's my dream to do, be that every year. And I tell them that at the start of every season. And they had a great, Steve Kirshner, SID, talked me into letting the camera come out on the court the first practice in 2016-17. And I told them about, you know, how disappointing last year was, and I'd asked them to use the off season's fuel from that loss. And I said, I'm looking around this center circle, and in front of me I see a team that's good enough to win a national championship, but we got to do it every day. And lo and behold, we did win it, and so at our banquet they showed that tape, and I'd never seen it. But we share those kind of goals pretty straightforward. But it's always my goal to win the regular season because it's, you know, over 8 or 9 weeks or ever how long it is, and I like that part. But we do set short-term goals, but our long-range goals are pretty easy to establish.
The team has worked. It's poured an entire year's worth of effort to get to a national championship game. You have a handful of moments. Some coaches, Roy, say little to nothing. Others feel like that message is as important as it gets. Just before a national championship game, what do you say?
Oh, I think I'd probably lean towards those guys that don't think it's very important. But you know, the clock's running. I got to say something. You know, they're not supposed to go out there to a certain number. But I try to talk to them about our dreams. Be led by your dreams, not pushed by your problems. And we got to this spot because you had a dream. And then the last thing I do is we have this little deal at the start of the tournament. I draw a little square in the corner and say, you know, if we win, we get together and I write the number 32 down. And then the next week it gets a little bigger, and the next week it gets a little bigger. And so when you're in a national championship game, I take that marker and cover the entire outside edge of the dry erase board, I guess is correct terminology now, and say that at the end of the game, I want to put a number 1 up here. And there's only 2 teams that have a chance to put number 1 here. Somebody's going to win tonight. Why not let it be us?
A change when it comes to championships. You noted something, and a change ultimately was made. And it might seem superficial or like window dressing, but it's absolutely a part of the championship tradition and picture. Confetti and its timing. Mm-hmm. What change did you want to see happen, Roy?
Well, I have a picture in my office that is really cool because it's photo-opped, if that's the correct terminology. Photoshopped. But in '16, I wanted to shake hands with Jay and say congratulations, and I'm happy for you, and I really was. And the confetti's coming down and the whole thing. And so with the tournament committee, when they talked to us after the '16 season, said, what would you change, if anything? And I said, don't allow the confetti to come down until the losing team gets off the court. You don't want them to have to see all that celebration, see what they could have been enjoying, because their hurt, their pain is enough. And so in '17, they did let Gonzaga get off, before it came down, but yet I have a picture that shows the celebration. I'm shaking hands or hugging Mark and the confetti. I said, wait a minute, this didn't happen, that kind of thing. But no, I think that having the compassion for that guy that lost, because I've been there, and you don't need anything else to add salt to your wounds because it's a tough moment.
In the times it took to get there, to reach the title game and to not win it, if you could go back now, Roy, and give some advice to your younger self then, what would you have told that younger coach?
And I've thought of that. I really have.
Have you?
What would I do differently? It's either confident or cocky or stupidity, but nothing. Wouldn't change a thing.
Why not?
Because we gave it everything we had, and we invested everything as players. We thought it out as hard as we could as coaches. I mean, even in 16, when we lose on the last second shot, they were people that said, well, why didn't you put somebody on the ball? And what we did defensively was perfect. We just didn't execute it. And, and that's the bottom line right there. But, we had a timeout, and you made Christmas, they last 17 minutes or something. So we had plenty of time to think about what we were going to do. But I really have looked back and said, what would I do differently? And, players got to play on game day. Coaches got to coach on game day.
We spend time looking back. My last question, Roy. What do you most look forward to?
The relationship with the guys. My daughter gave me a piece of plexiglass or silver or something, but it said, statistics are important, but relationships last a lifetime. And in 05, 09, 17, all three of them, I said, North Carolina basketball is always going to be Dean Smith, Phil Ford, Michael Jordan. But now it's going to be you guys. And I said Sean May and Marvin Williams and Raymond Felton. And I said Tyler Hansbrough and Ty Lawson and Wayne Ellington. And I said this bunch, Justin Jackson and Joel Berry. And so I think the relationships, it's what I love the most. And it's when I decide to quit, that'll be what I'll miss the most.
The Hall of Famer Roy Williams, thanks so much for spending some time with us, Roy.